I feel like in Edison, the decks are either like a perfectly crafted blend of herbs and spices or a pile of cards. And this is more so the latter, but I did technically go to my local with this, get a round 1 loss for being late, and then not get defeated by anyone. So this is an undefeated Quickdraw Machina deck profile. Hopefully this will encourage you to go to your local or even just play suboptimally with your friends, because playing physical Yu-Gi-Oh is a unique experience that can't really be replicated. So yeah, let's check it out.
Alright, so to start us off, we got 3 copies of Machina Gear Frame. Obviously in a Machina deck, you're going to run 3 of this. Searches out Fortress, which we run 3 copies of Machina Fortress as well. And then I guess something that actually requires any level of explanation, I run 1 Machina Force. Obviously you can search this off of Gear Frame as well. It's basically Monster Reborn for Machina Fortress. And this is where like the deck is limited by the cards I physically possessed. I would run more of this in an optimal build, but I did take this to my local and go undefeated, so it is what it is. Yeah. So next off, we got the Plant Engine. We've got 2 Lone Fire Blossom, 2 copies of Dandelion as well. And then I do run the 1 copy of Titanial. I do somewhat often find myself going into Titanial off of Lone Fire if I don't have another strong board to create or sit on or whatever. Then we've got 3 copies of Debris Dragon, another card that's just an incredibly strong normal summon in the deck, as long as you've got a grave set up for it. You can make Black Rose, obviously, with Dandelion or Lone Fire or other cards I run. Then getting into the cards that maybe not everyone runs in their Machina deck. Quickdraw Synchron, I run 2 copies of. This obviously lets you go into Drill Warrior, and that's basically all it does in the format, but there's technically some other synchros you can make that do things very situationally. But extra deck space is not all that tight anyway. But anyway, so Quickdraw Synchron. It's also importantly a machine type monster, meaning in desperate situations you can pitch a Quickdraw and a Fortress and special the Fortress from your hand. Or not even necessarily desperate situations, it's just an additional reason that the card is versatile and works in the deck. It can also set up a tribute summon if you need it to. Or can just put something in grave if you need to. Quickdraw does so many things other than making synchro monsters. Alright, so another point when the deck is limited by what I physically possess, I run 1 Super Nimble Mega Hamster. I know, I guess some people's builds run 1 or 2 of these willingly. I think this is one of the strongest opening plays in the format. I don't think that's a revolutionary thought, but that is a build around card and I wish I had more copies. That said, deck did alright. We run the 3 Raikou, obviously to search off of Hamster, or just to set on its own. We run 3 Lila. I know this is kind of more copies than some people run in Machina builds and stuff, but we really do want to fuel our grave. And also, later game, I'll often find that I'll have a play to make that doesn't require my normal summon. So yeah, summoning Lila, popping a back row, is actually a pretty good use of your normal summon a lot of times in this deck. Another good use of the normal summon, I run 3 copies of Caius the Shadow Monarch. This and Machina Fortress are 2 of the strongest cards in the format, so having access to both makes it a decent deck. Run 1 Plague Spreader Zombie. Just another thing to mill and make stuff with. Also, you can make Goyo with Lila, and making Goyo on its own is an incredibly strong play in the format. Card Trooper, card that some people call one of the best cards in the deck, because again, it's a machine type monster that mills for you. It does so much for the deck, and also you can set it. Obviously you can set any monster, but you can set this and it actually has a relevant effect of letting you draw a card. But basically I have this theory going on where the more monsters you run that you can relevantly set, the better, kind of, because it makes them more ambiguous what you are setting. So the fact that I run Raikou and Hamster makes that a stronger play to set that, in a sense. Tragodia, this card's alright. There's so many plays that this opens up. I almost wonder if it wastes my time thinking sometimes. But yeah, Trag, decent card. Sets up for Caius and Synchro plays, or taking their monsters. Gore's obviously also a very good card, don't need to explain that one. Charge of the Light Brigade, this mills for you obviously, and you can grab whichever of the 2 Light Sworns you think you need at the time. Foolish Burial, this can put whatever you need in grave obviously, but opens up a decent number of like active plays in the deck. Heavy Storm obviously, 1 Mystical Space Typhoon. Brain Control, again, possibly one of the strongest cards in the format, and this deck can really make use of it. It's definitely not just Brain Control Caius, but that play is devastating. Alright, the last spells, we've got 3 Pot of Avarice. This is also one of the strongest cards in the format, possibly one of the strongest unlimited spells, up there with like Miracle Fusion or something. When you resolve this, it's a +1, but also it really does let you recycle actual plays. It puts back gear frames, it puts back things that you didn't necessarily want to mill if they're like Titanial. Yeah, obviously Pot of Avarice is good. Then the final main deck card is a copy of Call of the Haunted. So, yeah, it's like, why would this be the only trap that you run? Because I'm definitely fine milling it, but this card is actually a card that people end up scooping to a lot of the time in the ways that it actually comes up as a play. It gets you over the top for game basically a lot, as well as just giving you access to anything in your grave in a deck that mills a lot. Alright, so I suppose next we will do the extra deck before going to the side. Alright. So, first off, got 1 copy of Cataster, not revolutionary there. 1 copy of Magical Android, copy of Brionic, and then we do run 2 Drill Warrior. I did make 2 the very first week that I brought it, and I was glad that I had 2. Run 1 Turbo Warrior. I think this card is mildly slept on. It stops Caius, basically. It negates the effect, or it's immune to being targeted by the effects of level 6 or lower monsters. So I think that's slept on, but I have not actually made it. 1 Iron Chain Dragon. This card, just to clarify, when I went undefeated with the deck, I did not actually have Iron Chain, which I found out at the point that I summoned a Debris and brought back a Raikou, but I was able to play out of it, and I did add the Iron Chain because you should run this card, obviously, if you're running Raikou and Debris. Ancient Fairy Dragon. This is another card that is basically a Debris target, but I've actually made this against Gravekeepers and popped the Necro Valley, so that was fun. 1 Goyo Guardian, probably the strongest 6-star, but 6 stars are really strong. Unfortunately, you can't go into that off Quickdraw, obviously. Nitro Warrior, you can make this off Quickdraw if you need to make a 7 for some reason. Black Rose Dragon, best 7-star, obviously. 1 Stardust Dragon, because you can make it. You can make it off Debris, that's what I ended up having to do when I didn't make the Iron Chain. 1 Thought Ruler. This card I feel like a lot of people didn't run back in the day and stuff, and then they're reading it, coming back to the format and thinking it's better than it is, but a solid 8-star. Colossal Fighter, again, this is like somewhat decent against heroes, kind of, not really. You probably won't make this, but again, extra deck space, not that tight. And 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. I was running 2 of this, and then I cut the 1 for Iron Chain. Okay. On to the side deck, because I feel like this is actually pretty relevant in the format. First card in the side deck is not one that I ran when I topped with the deck, but I'm interested in this, especially as I acquire more copies of Super Nimble Mega Hamster. I'm really interested in the idea of pitching this off of Drill Warrior and grabbing back whatever flip effect. 3 copies of DD Crow. Probably the strongest side card in the format. It stops so many things. It's also a monster for Avarice, which is relevant sometimes. 2 Cyber Dragon. It's Cyber Dragon, generically gets over stuff, can scoop up other machines. 1 Book of Moon. This card is a card that, obviously, I guess I had 64 sleeves. I didn't know until I was too far into it. But this card is something that is decent enough in the deck, or decent enough in the format that I have sided this in while having to unsleeve a card to do so. But yeah, stops so many plays. Also saves your fortress, which again is not a revolutionary thought or idea, but it's extra good in this deck. 2, pulling the rug. When I first came to the format, I basically thought Monarchs were the strongest thing, so I've been scared of them. And Caius is a very strong card, and it's not the only card that gets an effect when normal summoned, so decent enough side. And then the last cards are part of why I think I did so well with the deck is that I sided 1 copy of Mirror Force, 1 Torrential Tribute, 2 Bottomless Trap Holes, and 2 Trap Stuns, and those cards ended up being, I think, fairly unexpected by people in this deck. And using trap cards, particularly these trap cards, obviously, when people don't expect you to have traps is incredibly strong. Similar to the idea of how setting a monster gets better if you're actually running relevant flip effects. Yeah, if they think you're not setting traps, the traps get stronger, essentially. Another card that caused a tiny bit of controversy, the fact that I cited this in against frogs. Trap Stun is incredibly strong in the format. I also have a little, thing that I think about a lot where how recently the card came out at the time of actual Edison does probably correlate on some level to power level, and this was a fairly recent card. But yeah, this can stop so many things. In particular, the thing I wanted to stop was Threatening Roar, just because, again, I did not expect them to think that I was going to side in Trap Stun versus Frogs, but I knew that this player does run above 0 traps, and I wanted it, and then it did work. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's basically the deck. I'll show off my tokens now, because when you're running the Dandelion, you do have to come with the tokens prepared, obviously. But yeah, that was my, technically I showed up to my local late, got the round 1 loss, but then every opponent I played, I did defeat, therefore the deck is undefeated. So my Undefeated Quickdraw Machina deck profile. Thank you for watching, and peace. One other thing I didn't address, I guess, I didn't run any copies of this card, and I did not miss it. I don't understand when I would ever want to make this with a Plague and a Machina Fortress, so if anyone can, non-rhetorically comment down below why I would run this card, I would appreciate that. Thank you.